So hello and welcome. So today we'll be just showing you what is Call of War game all about and its doctrines. So most of the new players who are visiting this game are not common with these doctrine stuffs. So I will be basically showing you each and every doctrine, their advantages, disadvantages, and how to play with them. Let's go. So first we have Axis. Axis is a very basic. It's good for beginners and a lot of good players, amateur like pro players also you use these doctrines, as it is very simple. Like, you don't get any bad debuffs other than the cost. It has good hit points, good damage. Allies are also beautiful. They're basically optimization. This reduce your production time, cost time, as well as upgrade cost, but at the cost of movement speed, and that is not too much, but that's good. Next we have the commitment. Commitment is all about quantity, and you know that in commitment you can basically drop a lot of troops into a section, and they are not very effective, but if you stack them all together they are going to be very effective. And we have this 10% damage reduction. As I've told you that their damage is not going to be so efficient. Next up we have the Panician. This is a very tricky doctrine. The thing in Panician is that, I'm telling you a trick, you don't have to get caught. Don't get caught, okay? Because you have good movement speed, good view range, you have to stay a bit of online. But if you get caught, then your hit points is 10% less, so you're going to die pretty early. Next up, moving on to infantry, normal militia. So the basically things I have got here is that Comintern militia is very powerful. You have to deploy them in any sectors for defensive purposes. They are very good, and let me tell you that Comintern is basically a very passive doctrine. You need to play this like artillery, infantry, tank game. Okay, so not much of an option with you, but you can spam anything you want. Next up we have the Panician, who is also pretty good in militia, but not that good as Comintern, and Axis gets a debuff on that. So next up to common infantry. So common infantry, again, USSR, all the Soviet Union, whatever is a Comintern, has a very good upkeep. Cost is 10%, production time is also low, so you can very understandably think that this is a very good doctrine if you want to play this defensive and counter striking game. It's very good, pretty good. And then we have the Panasian, whose their speed is very high, and so their hit points is also a matter. So you get that 10% hit points, so you don't have to worry about. They're like just common infantries with just more range and more speed. Okay, next up we have the motorized infantry. Motorized infantry is basically like very fast infantry. They are very vulnerable though, but I would consider not using them because I don't use them so often, but if you use them, no problem. For motorized infantry, Axis is a must. It's one of the best, and one of the one you should use in every single match in Axis. In starting, most people doubt motorized infantry for light tanks, but I tell you, motorized infantries can tackle with enemy infantry, which you are going to get mostly. Not light tanks you will be facing in the first when attacking, because players will try to if they try to defend with their light tanks, then you can easily outrun them. No, not with this thing, but they're common infantry. You can take this, and most people don't like to defend themselves with lighting, so it's a good purpose you can serve. Next up, we have the mechanized infantry. So for Axis, you get a good buff that they are available a day ago, but for allies, they're pretty good. They're good because the production is lost, the hit point is more, but for Committed you get a debuff of 2 days. Next up, for commandos, in Axis commandos are not that great. They unlock too late, but if you can use them, they are good. But in case of allies, they are the best. They have the best everything. They just cut off the debuff of 15% speed with their 10% reduction. The damage is also more. They are very effective. If you are using allies, then you must try out this one. And but for Comintern and Penetration is just a normal commando. Next up, paratroopers. Paratroopers have nothing unique. They are all the same in all cases, but except allies. Because in World War II, allies had very good paratroopers, and they landed along in Germany and Japan in World War II. They're very effective. Make sure you use this. Next up, we have the artillery, ordnance section. So basically, the artillery axis doesn't use so much of artillery, but their artillery is pretty good if you want to use them. We have the Comintern artillery, which is very effective. You can just keep producing, spamming them on ground. They will be very effective. They cause a lot of damage. Use them with infantry combined, artillery plus infantry, very good support. And back end with Penetration, they also give you a good damage stuff. It's very beautiful. You use them with Penetration as well. Next up, with anti-tank, again we see that Comintern has very good stuffs. They get 15% more damage in this is armored car and this is heavy tanks. So they are very effective against Axis. If you are Comintern defending against Axis, you must use this anti-tank in their ways, where they will be spamming out their panzers, because you can obviously obstruct their way. Next up, we have the anti-air. So let me remind you one thing about the German anti-air, because these are the Flak 88 who used to go with war in the is against tanks, and also they were very effective against planes. As we can see that the Flak 88 was a dual purpose, so you could get both tanks and planes. And other than other stuffs, they're pretty same. For the SP artillery, yeah, this is where allies shine. It's pretty good. They have 15% damage on tanks and 10% on HP. For SP anti-air, yeah, this again the ally Axis is pretty good against air, but unfortunately they could not save themselves in World War II, since they were of a low quantity and running out of manpower and all that stuff, because they were attacked from all sides. Keeping all that aside, SP artillery is not SP anti-air is not so good for Comintern and Penetration, because they do not build so much stuff. They use this thing. They used to keep it like on ground and use them as a defensive purpose. Next up, in tank section, this is the most vital section which you are going to know. This is a section where you must be focusing on attacks on. I am a very Comintern type player, so I use a lot of tanks. I love tanks because they are fast, they're good, and they're very mobile. So we have the armored car section. They are all same, but except Penetration. Penetration in World War II had very good armored cars. If you see in Battle of China, Battle of Shanghai, then you can very identify that the Japanese had very good stuff like this. Next, the light tanks, and again Penetration, we could see light tanks. You can use these stuffs, but for this thing, Germany as Axis and allies, you get a debuff. Movement speed, medium tank. Axis and Comintern medium tanks are just pretty good, but I don't think so you can make many medium tanks, because it has a very high cost. But for Comintern, you can make many medium tanks. For heavy tanks, Axis is pretty good. This Tiger stuff is actually real. They are very good. And if you see the Comintern, you can pretty much spam them. They are very low cost. I can assure you it's just. And they also remove the debuff with the 15% on other tanks. And for Penetration, unfortunately they didn't have a heavy tank, but I don't know how Call of War has added them in the game. So try to use them. This is the Japanese Tiger though. But tank destroyers, they had allies had pretty good tank destroyers. They had 15% more speed, 15% less production cost, and they also get available first along with Comintern. But again, as I've said before, that Penetration suffers from dealing with heavy armor, so you must go with them. Next up, we have the air section is pretty good for allies, and the Zeros, the Japanese Zeros, are awesome. They are amazing. If you can use them properly, they're pretty good. For tactical bombers, yes, again, but all are same, but except allies. Allies get a lot of range, a lot of damage right here. Okay, so next up we have the attack bombers. Attack bombers for Germany are pretty good. You know the Stuka dive bombers, so good, so beautiful. They were used in all kind of stuffs. They were using damage in infantry too. So that's why you get this 15% plus damage on infantry and plus on tanks. We have for the this for Commetent, yes, there were the Sturmovix, IL-2, IL-2 Sturmovik. We all know that how great they were. The Stalin's one of the greatest air force weapons. The law caused a lot of confusions in the Germans. They are very high tech, very good. Next up we have the strategic bombers, and here we find allies back again, because allies did bomb in World War II a lot in Germany and over Japan as well. Their strategic bombers, the B-17 and the B-29 Flying Fortress, were one of the best. For the naval bomber, yes, we are good. But I do think that in naval bomber section, you should give a buff to allies too, because they had great naval bombers too. But if you don't consider this Mitsubishi or the Japanese landing craft stuff, it's pretty good. It's very used a lot in World War II, and it was pretty good in dealing damage against ships. Pretty good, must use them. Next up we have the naval section. For allies, they have a very good destroyers. They remember in World War II they used to beat the wolf packs, so they had more damage, so they deal more damage on submarines. There are the Doctrines, and for submarines you get allies, because allies didn't use much submarines in the war, so you get the debuff. But the Axis submarine is very efficient and very good. Make sure you block their enemies supply lines with this. It's very effective. It deals a lot of damage. Again, for cruiser, we had the Soviet cruisers. You can see these cruisers are very good. They deal a lot of damage, and so if you see, look at the navy of Russia or Comintern, then this then only thing you can find good is the cruisers. Other than that, the Commission Navy is not that good. Basically, you have to spam battleships, cruisers, and destroyers in order to guard your lines. Or even sometimes in some matches, you don't have to make you don't have to make a navy also. So it doesn't matter all the time. And so for the Pan Asian, they built it quickly. Next up, battleships Pan Asian, sorry, Comitan, as I've told it before, it's get a debuffs of 1 or 2 days. But for Pan Asian battleships like the Yamato, Musashi, they were just like the Yamato, Musashi, Congo, they were so powerful that you get a buff on them. This is very good battleship. I recommend using them. They do not get the negative 10% damage at all. They are very good. They are very fast moving battleships with good firepower. They can destroy. They are better than all other battleships in the area. Next up, aircraft carriers. Aircraft carriers are bad for Axis, because they didn't have actually, except the Graf Zeppelin that was originally built was never put into service. Next up we have the American ones. The American ones are also good. It passes in the Battle of Midway and other battles like the Battle of Guadalcanal, Battle of Leyte Gulf, and all those stuffs. And other than that, the Japanese, they do have a good aircraft carriers. They also have an extra capacity of one more. Next up we have secret section. So the secret section is all about everyone has something better than other, so you can really just compare. First up, for the rocket artillery, yes, Comiton. You need to spam this along with the regular artilleries. They are good in defending against aircrafts as well. They have a reduced production time, and as well as they are very good. For the SP rocket artillery, this is also known as BM-13 or the Stalin Katyushas or the Stalin Sorgan. Pretty effective. Other than that, you don't get any buff in others, but use this is most powerful. Railroad gun, Axis is obviously good. The heavy Gustav is very pretty good. You must use them all the time. It's very effective. If you want them, you can use them. It's very good. And other than that, I don't think so. Railroad gun is very expensive for access as well. So if you don't want, you may not use them. I don't have any problem. I don't use them either. For flying bombs, yeah, Axis gets good of this, but Japan, all the Panasian also gets very good of this. Rockets, yeah, Germany again. And for the Me-262 or Me-163, the rocket fighters first flying jet by Germany is pretty good. For nuclear stuffs, of course, Japan, Panasian, they do get a divas because they were bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But the Allies get this very soon. So if you reach day 18 and day 20, and if you're fighting against a person who has allies and you are Comitan or Panasian or Axis, then make sure you just keep your interceptors online, because you are going to be intercepted by these nuclear bombers if they know this how powerful this is. So thanks, that's for all for today. This is everything. That's brings us to the top of the content. This Call of War, and we have discussed everything in details. And basically these things that doesn't gives a little bit of advantage and a disadvantage in a battle, but other than that it totally depends upon your skill and how do you resource management. Everything is a good factor. If you want me to make more video on this content, make sure you select the like button, subscribe to our channel, and give a comment down below. So what content should I make next? Thank you. That's all for today.